Good. Okay, let's shoot that.
Okay, here we go.
My first thing when I read the script was, oh Christ, how are we going to do that?
Simon Crane, he was instrumental in getting these what I think amazingly choreographed battles together.
The work they've done in those battle scenes is just unbelievable.
The story is a love story, but above all, it's a war.
They fought with spears, they fought with swords. It was brutal, brutal, brutal.
When you're reading about what weapons they had and what horrific injuries they suffered, it was really key to keep it all real. The main instruments of war were spear and shield.
Most actors and stuntmen want to work with just swords. The stunt arrangers had a kind of challenge there, trying to get the stuntmen and actors to work more with spears.
We had silicon heads of dummies that we were taking spears right through from one side to the other.
The Iliad describes Hector's lance as being 5.5 meters long. Well, we made one just to prove the point, and you couldn't work with it. So you keep bringing it down till you can get a length that you think, well, this functions. Every time we make something, we all go out into the yard and fight each other to see if it works.
We've made this so Brad can have the shield in his hand, do a tracking shot behind him, see in the distance the Boagra's character throw or mime to throw the spears. Visual effects would CG the movement of the spears, and we would have the tips come through the shield. One there, and one there, as close to Brad as he likes.
Not everyone had swords, and when they did fight, they were often made of bronze, so they would often bend. So in the film, we were actually using rubber swords, and some of them did bend, but that was very realistic.
And knowing that the swords are made from bronze, they're going to do more damage in a particular way. So that's the way we created the effects, to do more damage in maybe in a crushing of limbs manner rather than a cutting, like a samurai sword would be extremely, extremely sharp.
So even if you don't cut somebody and you hit them across the arm, you're going to break that bone.
If anyone hit someone else with one of these, I mean, it wouldn't kill them outright, but if they cut themselves badly enough, it would lead ultimately to their death. It must have been a very, very brutal, horrible, slow way to die.
And fire! And fire!
They used to, fire arrows. It's the bow and arrow.
Background, ready, and action.
If people got arrows in them, it wouldn't kill them. They'd fall down maybe, but you don't die straight away.
One of the problems with arrows is that they weigh, and so you can put them into a prosthetic, and they want them pointing out, and they drop. So we made the arrows out of paper.
We fired them out of air cannons that were specially made, so we could fire 10 arrows at a time. The amount of gore, blood and decapitation, sticking of swords in people was quite extreme. My edict from Wolfgang right at the beginning was as much as possible.
The violence in the story is particularly necessary because it's a reflection of the world they were in.
We weren't trying to glorify it, we were just trying to show realistic action. One group is on one side, another group is on the other side, they're armed with spears and a few shields, and they run together. What do you think happens? It's going to be very, very gory.
My job is to prepare the soldiers for their roles as Trojan or Greek warriors. We've got about 800 soldiers. 300 of them are Bulgarians, which we brought from Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, and the other 500 are Mexicans. Backside of that pen are 4 flags. There isn't a figure on them, but it's A,
B, C, and D.
Ahorita no tienen los letreros, las banderas que ven allá atrás hechas de maderas, pero es A, B, C y D. A eso de atrás le llamamos corral.
We've had about 3 weeks to prepare these guys to be fully trained soldiers. They've started without any kind of weapons at all, and then after about a week they've gone to using weapons, and then after that, in the 3rd week, we actually take them down onto the set and start trying to get into the format that they will actually be using.
Treat these as real spears. They're dangerous.
That's it. And then recoil, and then over the top.
Attention! Good. Excellent.
One more time, this time more aggressive, stronger with the spears, and if you're getting killed, you gotta fall down and die. All right?
Много агресия в началото. Много агресия в началото. Като каже реди да има
kill him, then go again. Kill him more, yeah?
Open up the shield a little bit more so that there's something for him to hit.
Do not get too close, yeah, to each other. Sometimes when you get too close, you know, remember you got a spear in your hand, so always try and keep the distance, yeah.
If you guys quit concentrating for 2 seconds, the whole day is fucked up.
Концентрирате и всичко се обърква, целият ден заминава по дяволите.
So it's got to be very serious.
Трябва да сме много сериозни.
Right? When you action, everybody goes.
Когато се каже action,
and everybody's on the same page.
Angry, angry.
Action! Action! Action!
It's just a bit not acting it very well.
It's not too easy.
So it's a life or death situation. It's you or him, yeah? So you have to be really aggressive, as if it's your last move, yeah?
Prepare to march! 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 Prepare to turn to the left! Turn! Prepare for battle, move back into a position so you got some space, battle positions there, and then charge on this.
Most of the Mexican scenes that we're shooting here are huge battle scenes where we have 2 enormous armies coming together in like a car crash together, and that has to be done with a great deal of control.
Good guys, good.
Any epic film like Troy is going to be difficult, but this was extremely difficult just because of the numbers of people, the locations where we were they were extremely hot, and the costumes that people were wearing.
The vision of it all is, it's harsh sunlight, and you fight with your armor and you're sweating, and you feel that it's painful. That's what Hector says to Paris. He says, if you see men dying, I have. It's nothing glorious about it. And our battles are not glorious.
You know, we were working 6 days a week. There were 2 units shooting at the same time. 6 days a week takes its toll, especially, you know, filming for 5 months.
We're gonna keep doing the same as yesterday. There's gonna be some fireballs thrown to the Greek encampment. So you're gonna keep moving all the time until you listen cut.
We had one there that sort of went bouncy. It just looked different, and you know, and then that fills this whole frame. The rest is visual effects.
So nobody runs straight to the bows. Everybody runs away of the bows, and then you find another one on your way. Avoid that one, near misses. Okay, that's it, guys. So get ready, and we do a rehearsal when we can.
Is everybody ready? Rehearsing. Everybody set. Background action! And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, cut it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, go on, mate. Background action! Background action! And 1,
working on a beach
at night with those sort of inclines in sand for 3 months, and then at night this whole other element kicked in of the creepy crawlies. Everyone's sort of keeping near the lights. I remember standing there one night, I was standing next to the camera and I've looked down at the operator's leg and he hasn't noticed, but he's got a spider on his boot being eaten by a scorpion. So I was like, oh my God, have a look, have a look. You know, so there was all those elements. It was really physically hard. It was a hard shoot.
We did a lot of training with the actors, you know, especially Eric Bana and Brad Pitt, in that they had a lot of fighting to do. And, you know, there's one main fight between the two of them.
We were just a week before finishing this movie. We had just the big fight between Hector and Achilles left. We want to do it at the very end so that all the other big scenes are out of the way. We can completely concentrate now on the physical part. So no character work anymore for the actors. And right when we were ready to do that, a hurricane came and destroyed almost all of the wall of Troy with the gate and everything. An unbelievably huge set, and the fight had to take place right in front of this wall, and we decided there's no other way than rebuilding the whole set again. It took weeks and weeks, of course.
Hurricane came in, wiped out the wall of Troy, plus I got injured that weekend, so it was just not going to happen.
Brad, funnily enough, tweaked his Achilles tendon, and with what he does in his fights, he does lots of jumps and lots of running, and obviously if he can't walk, he can't really do it.
And the doctor told him, you cannot work for weeks and weeks. I think we finished production sometime in September or so. Finally, Brad was ready to do this fight in the mid of December, and it worked.
Well, in Shakespeare's terms, it's sort of the death of kings. It's the big moment.
This is the monumental fight. Action. Even if we saw 50,000 already against 25,000, this between these two is the most spectacular and the most fascinating and frightening of them all.
You see absolute rage versus someone of absolute respect.
I've seen this moment in my dreams.
The Hector character represents equality. He is under attack from someone who has pinned all his life's frustrations and anger on this one man, and he's going to make him pay. He's going to destroy him.
There are no pacts between lions and men.
The thing that's most exciting about it is it's the actors doing it. I mean, and that's true of all the fights in this. It's the revelation of character through the fight, through the situation, rather than it being just a sort of a spectacle of moves.
The fight scenes themselves, I know they spent months and months and months choreographing them, and we obviously spent a lot of time actually learning them, but I think the hardest part is the work that they've put into creating them, because they needed to choreograph fights not only look spectacular and that work, but that actors can do.
X-1, take 6.
Okay. And action.
When you read the script and it says, oh, Achilles fights in a godlike manner, you think, oh, that's very easy to write, thank you very much. And now you've got to come up with a totally new sort of style of fighting. But I looked at all different styles of fighting. At that time I was working with Thai stunt people, so I got them to prepare a fight. So I looked at that. That obviously wasn't what we wanted, but there was bits in it that were good.
We used Speed Skater as an image, Carl Lewis, the sprinter and long jumper, because in one of the first fights, he just moves and moves really quickly and with a great economy of action.
It's not martial arts and it's not Matrix or Hong Kong Phooey at all, but we sort of used a bit of that just in his body reactions, say. He's always trying to lunge with the sword, but he uses it like a boxer in that he feints maybe with one hand while he brings in like an uppercut with the sword. And he'd always try and get in over the top of the other person's shield to try and bring the sword through the back of the neck. It was a real, Achilles showcase to show off his style of fighting. And Hector also show that he's totally skillful as well.
And action.
Hector has pretty much the most fights of anybody in the movie. Rather than having something like Achilles, which is very stylistic, his skills have been learnt through fighting.
I like the fighting in this film because it's quite brutal, and it's not like a martial art. There isn't an exact place to hit someone.
But everything's a kill shot. Just know, everything is a kill shot.
Got it? The worst nightmare for any sort of fight choreographer is somebody getting hurt.
Got it?
Pretty much all fight choreographers will avoid doing any attacks directly to the face. So nothing in the 8x10 or the headshot, because you're going to change somebody's career. Obviously we work with blunt weapons, but I mean, they would still hurt if they hit you.
Eric got hit, he got a bloody nose once, which looked, it was good because it was the end of the fight. It wasn't good. No injury is good, but it was actually in character or in keeping with continuity.
Essentially, you learn that you can never train too much because ultimately the shoots are very long, and to get through it mentally and physically, you do need to be fit.
There's just no shade, and the sun is so intense, and then it's reflected off the ground as well because it's all this stone. And then there were days when I would see 200-pound grips just do a header. You know, it was not uncommon.
If you see the fight, you just can't believe that these are actors who are doing it. They're not stunt men hiding somewhere and they do it for the actors. It's the actors. They can be very proud of it, and I am too for them. And if you talk about blood, sweat, and tears, about the reality of a fight, that's one. I had no idea about this whole world. I mean, how would these design look like? How does a temple in 1250 look like, or the city of Troy?
You know, a lot of this, though, was what the production design people came up with, and they had to combine research with imagination.
It is a heroic story, and so the whole setting is glamorized.
You're watching an epic film, and you've got to have these epic proportions in order to make this such a grand film.
You have your moments on these productions where you get overwhelmed by the art direction and by the set design.
The huge gates open and all these people are cheering and they're throwing petals at us. I mean, I had goosebumps. It's just one of these things you really think you're there.
Heinrich Schliemann is a German explorer who excavated Troy in the 19th century.
He says that when he was 8 years old, he was given a book, a children's history, which showed the burning city of Troy and Aeneas escaping from it. And his father explained to him that it was an artist's reconstruction. Nobody really knew anything about Troy. And Schliemann tells us in his own autobiography, at that moment I said to my father, when I'm grown up, I'm going to go and find Troy. He almost literally set off with Homer in one hand and a spade in the other to prove that the world of Homer had existed. Schliemann began excavating at the site that we now call Troy. And he said to the world, yes, this is it. I have found the Troy of the Trojan War, where Priam lived, where the heroes came and fought.
With a project like this, you've got to do a lot of research. It was important for Wolfgang that the film was authentic as possible.
Nigel Phelps, he had an enormous knowledge about the time, and his first drawings were just beautiful, and they were digging themselves into all kind of books and research material in British Museum. I was just fascinated by what they came up with.
Nigel Phelps's view on it was that he'd rather create something of tremendous visual interest rather than you can actually get slightly bogged down with historical research and things like that.
You look at pictures of what contemporary historians think Troy probably looked like, and it's quite a bit smaller than what we have and quite a bit less majestic. But for the movie, it makes it more powerful, and frankly, it makes it more beautiful that you have this glorious city.
I realised that the reality of the period was that the buildings and everything was very small, and so what I've done is mix up several different cultures of the period, the scale of the Egyptians and some of the forms that the Mycenaeans created. But to get the big landscapes, the big epic sweeps, and you figure out where in the world are you going to be doing this?
We started the construction process for Troy in Malta, in the middle of the Mediterranean. A film like Troy, being an historical project, you can't get anything. You can't get props, you can't get furniture, nothing exists. So absolutely everything you see on the screen has to be designed, budgeted, created, argued over.
So here we are behind the streets, behind the back lot, and if we go through here, we'll get a good view of the square. We exaggerated the scale of the city, and an example of where this historical accuracy then goes out the window is that the largest sculpture that was found over that period was 10 feet tall, and we've got to have like 40-foot statues. We had to create our own language with the art of the place. We were combining all these different sort of cultural references. The world that we have in Troy, a more religious place as opposed to the Spartan and the Mycenaean cultures, which they don't have any art, they don't have any sculptures.
We had over 115 columns. There was probably 20 different types, the largest of which were 40 feet high, and probably the smallest were about 15 foot high. The set really, apart from structure, columns and geometrical lines, was very much about texture. We used a lot of real surfaces which existed in Malta that we took rubber molds from.
In between scenes, you might be doing something like changing your shoelace, and you look down, you think, no one will ever see that grouting, but someone's actually paid attention to that. And the amount of effort and detail that goes into it, it's you kind of feel a bit guilty.
Most sets that I've been on, things will look good from about 10 feet away, which means they'll look okay on camera, but when you get up close, you can see that it's, that's fiberglass. I mean, I would be standing right next to it and looking at these blocks of stone, and they still look completely real.
It was completely fascinating walking onto the set of Troy in Malta and seeing what in my archaeological way I think of as Troy 6, which is the way the archaeologists refer to the Troy of the late Bronze Age, before my eyes.
We were initially going to go to Morocco for the scale parts of the film, meaning we needed to have a very broad beach where 1,000 ships could land.
We had to make the decision right when there was the potential for the Iraq conflict.
And then because of the political situation and the danger to go to Morocco, the only real alternate situation we found was Mexico, on the other side of the world.
Fortunately, I had a coffee table book on Baja, and there was an aerial picture of this fantastic looking beach.
Because it felt as if it were a beach that hadn't really been touched. Progress really hasn't come yet, or civilization to that extent. I mean, it was really stunning, and in many ways much, much better for telling our story, in the sense that it looks much more like the Aegean. I mean, there were two issues. One, the environmental issues. I mean, first of all, we're working on what is pretty much a pristine beach.
The entire coast of Mexico is an endangered turtle habitat. So to allow us to build our boats on the beach, to have our encampments, to occupy such a large stretch of beach, we implemented our own turtle incubation nursery.
We've been able to release more baby turtles into the ocean because of the precautions that we've taken.
Because of the rush with the change from Morocco to Mexico, there really wasn't enough time spent on just finding out exactly what happens to that beach. It was never the same beach on any particular given day, really. It changed all the time.
early one morning to like get down the beach straight away, and 2 of the ships were like teetering on the edge of this like 10-foot bank of sand. It was just like 100 foot of the beach had washed away overnight.
Logistically a nightmare, but as a location, you know, it was fantastic.
We've built 500 foot of wall, and for the most part it's on average 40 foot tall. It's 60 feet in the central bit where we have the 40-foot gates.
It's endless, and Wolfgang would have to sit us down and say, this is what you'll see.
Digitally, it's going to be extended by miles. As a viewer, we should have the same reaction as Helen does when she first sees it. You know, she's looking around, you should be filled in awe.
Actually, there have been challenges with the weather everywhere, and it seems just when we sort of get a foot up, or a leg up, so to speak, something happens, like the hurricane in Mexico. We just wrapped first unit Friday night, did some inserts on Saturday, and we were just about to shoot an additional week of second unit when Hurricane Marty blew through the Baja Peninsula and pretty much hit Cabo San Lucas directly. You can see the devastation all around you.
It worked out that the cheapest way of doing all of the, you know, these other 3 days of shooting that needed to happen was to rebuild the whole thing again. The horse was a really pivotal design challenge in the film. I think it's 12 days the Greeks had to build it. If you apply logic to it, the only building material the Greeks would have been burnt ships and the vestiges of the Trojan defences that were left behind.
Bob Ringwood came in with a very intriguing reference of a gorilla that had been made out of car tyres.
I also had a picture of this decomposed ship. It just burnt and charred and it just looked fantastic. And it was pretty simple to look at the two things. It was like, Paul Catlin came up with what was the best one. And the sculptor, Martin Smeaton, took the sketch and came up with a 12-inch maquette that was just fantastic.
And then we embarked on making a full-size sculpt in polystyrene. It's 42 feet high.
And the other thing with having this sort of informal design was that you could have lots of different doors that would open in it.
The whole thing weighs about now 12 tons. One of the driving factors was the fact that it had to be dismantleable to transport from England to Malta and then take it apart again and then from Malta to Mexico.
At about the time when the Greek tradition felt the Trojan War had happened, there does seem to be a stage of the city of Troy that was attacked and was destroyed by enemy action. So there is the possibility that that is the single event that was behind the Greek tradition of the war. Equally, there's a possibility that there was more than one Trojan War.
In a society where they built everything out of stone, how do you burn the city? We had to integrate a lot of wooden aspects, as many wooden aspects as we could into the design. So we've got a lot of market stalls and wooden scaffolding and awnings and lean-tos.
So far as an exterior, purpose-rigged fire job for a movie is concerned, I personally can't think of anything bigger, perhaps since Gone with the Wind. Hopefully ours will be slightly different to that because this is a big control and we can turn it off.
You move to the side walls, all 3 sides there, away from the horse and away from this building here.
We have 5 separate points throughout the back of the set where we have a liquid propane gas tanks. We get a little bit jittery when we see people, having a quite a cigarette leaning on a 500-litre propane tank.
Wolfgang rolled the shot for 2-3 minutes, then it was cut, and the Maltese fireman ran in onto the set and doused it all down. I mean, it was absolutely breathtaking, the way the horse caught.
Bernard Shaw said, "No one has satisfactorily placed a boundary between myth and history." So you can see the enormous attractions, both of the story, the historical story, plus the myth.
Doing a movie on this scale with these thousands of people, with these sets that were almost unheard of, to shoot that in Malta, in Mexico afterwards, and you pull it off because of one reason: you have a fantastic project.
On a movie like Troy, it is sort of particularly difficult to achieve 70,000 people fighting in front of a city that doesn't actually exist, and to have 1,000 ships land when you only have 2 practically built.
They don't make these movies anymore. And to see, okay, we do it, and we do it well.
We try to fill the frame as much as possible with real action, with real people really fighting, and with real boats.
We can actually show 1,000 ships, and we can show armies of 75,000 soldiers. This ought to be on screen.
Wherever the limitations of the reality stop, that's where we try and take over. Starting from the beginning, one of the biggest ones was obviously creating an armada. You know, we knew we had to create 1,000 ships, you know, sailing on their way and then landing on the beaches at Troy. Right from the get-go, we took the plans from the art department and replicated the 2 ships that they were building and 5 or 6 other variations of those types of boats. We built them in CG. We had to build CG armies to row them. And we tried to keep our canvas real. The ocean was always the real ocean. We then just composited our ships into it. We sort of created a tracking system that enabled us to lay floating buoys and different scales of boat out in the ocean so that we could figure out all of our scaling and tracking, because tracking from a moving camera on a moving platform on a moving ocean is quite complicated. But we did a lot of testing on that and created some software that enabled us to really get some great tracks from that. And then we were able to build 1,000 ships and composite those into the sequence. We had the feeling when we did that shot and we were working on it that there were too many boats in there. Everybody at the house, all of us said, this is too many. There actually aren't too many. There are under 1,000 ships in that shot. But the reality is, as I was explained to Wolfgang afterwards, is that to have 1,000 boats in that kind of a sea, it's just not possible. Even though there were 1,000 ships, they would be spread out over miles and miles of ocean. They're sailing too close to each other. They're taking each other's wind. So we went back in there and we sort of tried to persuade Wolfgang to say, let us strip 60% of them out, which we've subsequently done. And it does look a lot better. Even just having 300 or 400 ships is still, you know, looks incredible on a shot like that.
The cable cam shots were by far the most difficult, of which there's several in the film.
In sort of simplistic terms, it's putting up cranes or stanchions that can go up to several hundred feet in the air that has a wire connected between the 2 cranes, and underneath it is slung a chassis system with a camera mounted underneath that. And that enables the camera, which is on a trolley connected to the cables above, to travel at high speeds for as long as the cables are. Basically, it started off life as a wire cam shot that Simon Crane, the second unit director, wanted to do in Malta, which was to basically chase over from the wall, come down, seeing all of the Greeks storming through the city and follow them right the way down through the set. And then we just sort of came up with this idea and said, well, if you shot it this way, we could later on we could marry this together with a wire cam shot that we were already planning to do in Mexico, which was to follow 50,000 Greeks as they appeared through the darkness, and then maybe we could actually just tie the two together. So we basically devised the shot so that we had the ability to basically just split the two plates together, and it was very simple, just to literally eyeball the speed of it until the two cameras were traveling at the same speed. We knew the height of the rig, the lens, and the angle it was pointed at. It's actually quite a simple split between the two locations.
My first thing when I read the script was, going through all these battle sequences, and they just say that there's thousands and thousands of people. And I was just thinking, how on God's earth are we going to make this look believable?
One of the biggest challenges and problems that we had to overcome was the fact that we had to create armies of 50, 70,000.
So it's not the same as all the battles we've seen come before us. So it was just trying to see how we were going to take battles one step further.
Immediately what they had to do was to write some software that would enable us to create an artificial intelligence system that could control and manage all of these soldiers. The software enabled us to basically go onto a motion capture stage and motion capture real stunt performers performing different actions, from walking to running to fighting with swords, fighting with shields, crashing into each other, running uphill, running downhill. And then the software basically is able to blend all of those motion capture clips together, and it can do it within a few frames. And therefore your 50,000 people are always individually different from each other, because variation is the name of the game when you have 50,000 people, so that you don't end up getting repetition and replication, because unfortunately that is what the eye immediately seeks out and finds. We were also able to give each of the soldiers different values of aggression, and this enabled us to say, well, who was going to win and who was going to lose, and then you literally let the computer go and it creates what we call a simulation of the action, and the computer will select all the motion capture clips that it thinks are relevant for the next step and the next motion that that character should be doing, and it's like a sort of a virtual chess. The Battle of the Arrows was a sequence that Wolfgang wanted to start off in a very epic manner. He wanted to see the fact that we had 20,000 Trojan troops outside the walls of Troy, and then he wanted to see 50,000 Greek troops march up and square off against them. And then this great fight start while the Trojans rain down arrows and slaughter the Greeks, and then everybody retreats and runs away.
You have 50,000 Greeks attacking 25,000 Greeks, and it might have taken me 12 seconds to write that. And then you see it on screen, and it's remarkable how much work it took to do that.
We worked with Wolfgang and with the DP a lot in pre-production, using pre-visualization tools and a little virtual army software that we created that enabled us to actually march armies up together and move the camera around and find the best shots that we were able to. That also enabled us to make sure we had the right equipment out on the location.
It's exciting to create these worlds, first in computers, and then you see it more and more realized, and finally you see the final product.
Sound is often misunderstood by the general public. They assume that the material that's recorded during the production becomes the material that comprises the final soundtrack. The job of the sound editor is to sort of simulate the reality of a photograph. You're trying to present a sonic reality that may have nothing to do with anything that visually would ring true. This is a Foley stage. It's the product of 10 years of dumpster diving, garage sale hunting, and the collecting of various materials that we might use to do sound design and to create sound effects for films. In the Battle of the Barricades, we had these large hay balls that were set ablaze, and they would come rolling down the hill into the Greek camp. What we wanted to do was create a base element so that we could give some size and some weight to these hay balls. Add to them some other crunchy sounds to create the sound for the large fireballs. The sound of arrows flying through the air needed to be captured in great number, and therefore we needed a very large variety of whooshes and swooshes and flying sounds. Here's a wiffle ball bat. 4 or 5 sounds to make a single arrow flight sound. That then single arrow flight sound was composited 1,000 times in order to make a cloud of arrows appear from the walls of the city. Expressing the sound of swords was an essential element in Troy. Sword play basically comes in 2 flavors sonically. There's the clank of the metal on metal. And there's the sort of the scrape and the zing sound, as we call it, for the metal being glanced. Fire, like everything else, can fool the microphone. Proximity with fire is just like proximity with any sound. The closer you get to the microphone, the larger the fire sounds. And so a small fire close to a microphone can sound like a much greater fire. The most interesting challenge in Troy was to give it this big scope and big scale and to express that throughout the film.